We'll get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Will Newhart. I'm Nicola's campaign operations manager and the moderator for today's virtual town hall. This is the first of our primary push town halls where we hope to elevate voices in the district and also incorporate your concerns into the campaign for California's 8th district. We do truly appreciate you taking time out of your day to join us, especially on such a beautiful day like we have today. The first half of our town hall today will include a brief introduction of Nicola by former congressional candidate Lamba, and then we'll follow that up with some remarks by Nico, and he'll talk about some updates on his campaign and his vision for the next 3 months as we head towards the primary. And then we'll spend the second half of the town hall dedicated to answering questions from you. We will have a question and answer portion, so you can either raise your hand and I will unmute you and you can ask your question to Nico directly, or we also will be using the Q&A feature of Zoom today. So if you haven't already, down at the bottom toolbar of your screen, you should have a More button that has three little dots. And if you click that, there should be an option to enable QA, and then it'll show up on your toolbar below. If you have any issues with that during the call or the town hall, just put something in the chat and I'll try to help you get access to that. And if we don't get your question answered today, we ask that you please make sure it is submitted in the Q&A, and we will follow up with you afterwards via emails to make sure everyone's questions get covered, because we've also been participants in town halls and we know how frustrating it can be when we come and have questions, but they don't get answered by the candidate. So we're hoping to avoid that and make sure everyone gets heard from. All right, so with that being said and all of our housekeeping and logistics out of the way, I'm going to turn things over to Hari to give a brief introduction of Nico.
Thank you, Nick, and thank you, Will. I'm Hari Lamba. I'm a grandpa, a businessman, public servant, and an ecologist. In the past, I have tried to get through to the Democratic Party with proposals for better messaging that I thought would have helped them win, but I couldn't get through. Finally, frankly, I've been dissatisfied with the Democratic Party. But since 2016, after Trump came to power, we've gone out of the frying pan into the fire. With the extreme right-wing things that are making things every day, I decided that I just couldn't sit on the sidelines and wait and that I had to fight. So early next year, I decided the only way to get through was to make noise by running for Congress in the 8th district. It seems like politicians don't listen unless you really help them big time or you oppose them. So I got organized with a serious exploratory run with a registered organization, bank account, and an excellent team of 4 people. So from June to January of this year, I was really active on social media, fundraising, videos, and events. I've learned a lot and gotten some name recognition. My overall messaging has been twofold. One, that I can provide messaging to weaken the extreme right. The second, I can provide descriptions of better ways forward for a better America, economically, politically, socially, morally, environmentally, and in foreign policy and internal security. I'm especially strong on the economic front, proposing a 4-pronged strategy: basic abundance, a green economy, affordability, and a pro-employment and a pro-environment industrialization. In respect to the green economy, my key message is that the energy transition is the biggest economic opportunity of the 21st century. Anyway, that's about me. As I was campaigning, I came to know Nicolas Carjuzaa. I was trying to get that pronunciation right, Nick. Our thinking is very similar, and I have come to know Nick and I've developed a really high regard for him. He's an amazing person. With degrees in business and industrial relations, Nick has an educational background that will help us. Till late 2025, he worked as an international analyst for the financial regulator FINRA in New York City. Nick has the honesty, integrity, knowledge, and dedication that I think we need from our next congressman. Nick and I have talked to each other quite a bit, and we have a real meeting of minds. Our backgrounds are very complementary. I can strengthen his messaging a lot on the industrialization, transportation, and energy fronts, and on political reforms. Both of us feel that the Democratic Party needs a shakeup and the Republican Party needs to be weakened. We need an end to the large scale corruption. We also need that the federal government should empower and enable the local governments and business organizations, as the latter cannot create opportunities or solve problems by themselves. Now, California has a system of the open primary where only the top two get to the ballot in the general election. Garamendi usually gets about 80% of the vote, and the Republican candidate Rudy Rizal gets about 20%. With three of us running opposing Garamendi, we would have split the vote, and neither of us, we thought, our assessment was, Nick and my assessments were that neither of us would succeed in succeeding Rudy Rizal in the thing. So with me consolidating behind Nick, it increases the probability that he'll come in second in the primary so that he and our team can go on to the general election. I believed he was in a stronger position with a stronger um, organization, fundraising, and so forth. So it made sense for me to get behind Nick. That does not mean I'm giving up the fight. I think the worsening national situation and the bad wars that Trump is starting, we need to keep engaged. All of you, need to be engaged. I'll be active on social media, getting out my ideas and promoting dialogues on what is best for America. However, I will be helping and backing Nick in every way I can. We'll be creating videos, helping with meetings, canvassing for him, and promoting him and his ideas on social media. This isn't just our campaign. We will not only encourage your participation, but Nick and I hope that you will help with ideas, volunteering, fundraising on social media, and for organizing and supporting events. Onward and forward to a better America. America has a tremendous potential for good. Right now, unfortunately, the evil is dominating. So let me introduce you to a great person and the next congressman from District 8. You'll be very happy with him as you get to know him more and more. Here is Nicolas Carjuzaa. Thanks, Nick.
Ari, I could not have asked for a better introduction. Thank you so much. Everyone here, thank you for coming. It's so important. And the reason it's so important is because I think in one way or another, I've reached you directly, whether it was a direct piece of mail that I sent you with my handwriting or I knocked on your door. Every single one of you has responded, not because I had money to reach you, not because I am the incumbent and have had the history to meet you. You're here today because I've made a personal connection to you in one way or another. And the issues that we're focused on are interesting, important, and imperative to solve. I'm going to go quickly through a presentation that I prepared today just to articulate more about this vision that we have. So please let me know if you don't see this right now. But we're off to the 2026 midterms. After Prop 50 changes, by the way, we now have Contra Costa County, Solano, bits and pieces of Yolo County and San Joaquin County to think about. And the name is really hard for people to get. I have struggled with this my entire life, so we're just going to do a quick exercise with my name so everyone can understand it. It's a French name. It's Nicolas, 3 syllables, and it sounds just like Ricola the cough drop. My last name, on the other hand, I don't know if I can help you. It's Car, Jew is in June, Za is in pizza. Carjuzaa. I really hope you guys can get it, but I would understand if you can't get it off your first try either. I want to tell you just a little bit more about who I am too. I'm a former international financial regulatory analyst for FINRA. I was born and raised in the East Bay. I went to Sonoma State University for my undergrad. I studied business. I was also educated in France at the University Paris Nanterre, where I got a first master's degree in business administration. And then I went to the University of Bristol in the UK to get another master's degree in international relations. I returned briefly to California to find a job in New York City. And that job took me on an amazing journey that landed in FINRA. And that is where I learned about financial regulation. It's where I learned a lot of the way our federal government becomes involved in our local communities and how local communities and consumers are protected and harmed by bad policy. And so my international education and background allow me to have focused my career on federal issues, which is why I'm running for federal government and why I understand the issues as I do. What I do is international relations, geopolitical analysis, and I focus on Bay Area impacts because this is my home. This is where I'm from. And this is where I think we need to be focused on our communities and to make a difference. I have been a Democratic political activist most of my life. I was a registered Democrat in 2009. The first president I ever voted for was Barack Obama. I was a young Democrat in Sonoma County. I was a registered Democrat in France. I was a registered Democrat abroad in the UK, and I was a registered Democrat in New York City. I helped volunteer for Mamdani's campaign most recently. This is all before I came to become a candidate myself, running for public office myself. And I am most focused and most interested in progressive policy because I believe progressive policy is where we can make the best impact for people. My issues, the most important thing right now is dealing with corruption. Everything downstream of corruption is possible if corruption is out of the way, which is why my number one item is to overturn Citizens United. We need to ban congressional stock trading and revolving doors. We need to reduce the role and influence of special interest groups. And we need to build more independent regulatory agencies. And I saw this firsthand working at FINRA, where we notice how regulators seem to shape and determine appropriate regulation based on feedback they get from corporations and from wealthy interests, rather than what's generally best for consumers. And when consumers come second, in general, we find that they come last. The next most important thing to me is affordable housing. And the reason we need to develop affordable housing in urban areas is because we need to allow people to continue to live in their own communities where they work. And we need to treat housing like a public infrastructure problem, not a way for people to make investments as a securities market. And so we need to revise the financial system at the federal level so that our tax code incentivizes development in ways that enhance the public good. Otherwise, when we change zoning rules, when the state provides more funding for housing, we're not going to build the right housing where we need it or for the types of people who need housing across the board. Universal healthcare is another one of my most important things. We need to institute a single-payer healthcare Medicare for all program. I want to eliminate the dominance of privatized middlemen and administrators, which suck up a lot of the cost that we experience as consumers in our healthcare system. It's the bulk of the inefficiency. And we need to do more to reduce drug prices. The single-payer healthcare system would allow us to do this. We also need clean energy jobs. This district, before Prop 50 changes, had all 5 of the refineries in the Bay Area. And this is the second largest employer of fossil fuels in the state. And with Prop 50 changes, we still have 3, one of which is closing now. And so the urgency to have clean energy jobs is not just a national problem, but it's a problem for our district. And so I need to be involved in this. The federal government and the state need to have a more hands-on approach to solving our energy jobs problem in this district. In particular, Benicia and Rodeo and Richmond need the security that comes with government efficiency and government effectiveness. Otherwise, we'll end up with more of Benicia. And the last thing for me right now is immigration reform. Immigrants are repeatedly the target and the scapegoat for Republican policy. And we need to fix our immigration system desperately so that this can no longer come to pass. And we need open borders to newcomers and treating them with fairness. I want to be clear that immigrants are American. My father is an immigrant. My wife is an immigrant. My sister-in-law is an immigrant. And so when people come here and they have the means to travel here and to build new lives, we know that they should be welcome. That's always been the history of this country. And I want to be very clear about how this is possible. And it's one of the reasons why I decided to run in the first place. There aren't enough Democrats in positions of power to make these changes meaningful and fast. So we need to win back the House and the Senate both in 2026 and 2028. We need to primary complacent Democrats. Every time that Democrats have failed to reach an agenda and provide for people, it has been because we didn't have enough Democrats on board. And so we need to make sure that there are enough Democrats in our system that are willing to make the drastic changes for reform that we desperately need for people. And so we need to prepare the legislation ahead of time. We need to win back the presidency in 2028. And then at that point, we need to move quickly and make no excuses for the role that we play and for the legislation that we pass. District 8 has a very interesting economic makeup. Some of the most important industries in our district vary across Solano County and West Contra Costa County. We've talked about the refineries. We know that Chevron and Phillips 66 face the same significant statewide regulatory barriers and market pressures that Vallejo faced, which ultimately led to them making a cheap business decision to just leave Benicia altogether. Regardless of the reasons for why that happened, we should have been better prepared, and our governments should have been better prepared for this. And so we're not going to let that happen again. Not to Rodeo, not to Richmond. And the time frame doesn't have to be 15 years for us to get our act together. John Garmendi has brought up shipbuilding numerous times because of the opportunities for jobs in Vallejo, for investment across the Bay Area. But I want to say that I agree with him, not because it's going to restore the levels of jobs that we had in World War II, but also because it is a way to build advanced manufacturing and to create some jobs that are desperately needed and much needed revenue to the district. It's also a significant opportunity and a geopolitical necessity. I agree with John Garamendi that we need to build more ships as a country, and we are behind for commercial shipbuilding and in our defense spending. On biotechnology, I just want to point out these are important industries that represent a strong corridor in the Vacaville area, but these are also industries that can leave very easily. With economic pressure, with geopolitical uncertainty, these are large companies that can make decisions like Genentech. To leave if they decide to isn't that inexpensive for them, especially with consolidation with foreign companies. And so these are opportunities, but vulnerabilities. We need to make sure we keep mindful of those types of industries. Healthcare, one of the largest employers in the Bay Area. And so I want to be mindful that if we move to a single payer healthcare system, that we're also talking about jobs that are part of the privatized system. We have Travis Air Force Base. We have some naval base as well. We want to make sure that the businesses that support those industries stay and that our defense spending continues to support the military family housing, the veteran services that we have. And lastly, I just want to point out that for manufacturing, we have over 400 large manufacturing businesses supporting over 17,000 jobs. But this isn't the whole picture. It really isn't. And if we over-focus on these types of industries that we do have in the Bay Area, we're not focusing on some of the bigger problems that go missing in that analysis. What may surprise everyone in this district is that 228,000 plus people were born in another country, and 43% of people in our district speak another language other than English at home. So this is a very international community as well, and that's a lot of perspective. That's a lot of global perspective in our district who see things in a novel, interesting way. And so we can be leaders in the country. They say often, as goes California, goes the country. This is part of why. Because we embrace immigration and because we embrace the open ideas that immigrants bring to our communities. 215,000 people are not in our labor force, and we have a 5.8% unemployment rate, which is higher than the national average. We have a 59.9% home ownership rate, which should be increased. But more importantly, the way that we've built housing, as I said, has led to a commute time of 35 minutes on average. And that's, if you think about how much money that costs people per year, it's almost $13,000 per year per worker. And so we need to focus on how we build housing and where people live, that they live closer to work, and reduce the overall strain on our public infrastructure, but on people's budgets. Another thing that's really important to understand is our home values are too high. And if you're looking at current interest rates, buying a median valued home is going to cost $4,000 per month. That means that even renters are often paying 30 to 50% of their income on housing in our district. And something that Michael Tubbs brought up, which I had to look up to make sure he was right, and he is, California, when you factor in the cost of living, largely because of the cost of housing, we have a 17.7% poverty ratio, which is in line with Louisiana. And this brings me to irresponsible development like California Forever. And these aren't the partnerships that we're looking for. Even though we do embrace development, even though we do embrace opportunities for growth, this isn't it. California Forever is not the partnership we're looking for. Let me remind everyone that the way we got here was that they hid their financiers behind a shell company. Then they sued ranchers and families to get control of the acreage that they have. They worked around our elected officials. They used an initial ballot measure in order to avoid CEQA and democratic oversight with their development plans. They refused to work within the existing Solano County plans for economic development and economic corridors. And they're still offering pie-in-the-sky promises to Solano County. When we fail to develop and take advantage of opportunities to grow as a district and doing the hard work, we become complacent and we become vulnerable to these types of development ideas that can take advantage of our desperation for change and for investment. So we do need to get a hold of this and make sure that California Forever, whatever legally they do develop, need to be held accountable, which is something I'm completely committed to. And this is why I want to talk about the metrics that really do matter. Because good outcomes for our industries must also mirror good outcomes for people. So I'm committed to raising the number of public forums that are held as a congressperson, and not just by me, but by local officials. This is how these town halls are ways for you to feel heard, and they're ways for you to influence government. I want to talk about how the median first home buyers are now 38 to 40 years old in this country. I also want to talk about the small business growth that's much needed in our district. Cities don't have enough grocery stores. Retail stores aren't enough. Professional services and trades can be the backbone of our economy. We don't need to just have billion-dollar investments to make a difference here. Another way to look at success is to make sure we understand that there are a large number of federal grants secured and then direct federal investment in our communities, whether that's through HUD for affordable housing or through economic development initiatives. And I want to make sure that in lieu of having single-payer healthcare systems, we increase the number of community healthcare centers that are funded, and we reduce the number of underinsured in our community. And lastly, all of this must land on a median wage growth and a reduction in the relative cost of living in California. Otherwise, people like Trump are going to be relevant because their populist rhetoric only matters when people have grievances and aren't making it ahead in life. I have made a couple endorsements. Hari Lamba is the first. And I want to say that Hari Lamba has just been an unbelievably incredible and valuable community leader to our district, but he's also become a dear friend of mine. And I have just as many good things to say about him and his ideas. I think that as an engineer, as a clean energy entrepreneur and a community leader, he brings all the perspective and the experience that we need. When we come together, it's not going to be one candidate that solves our problems. It's going to be coalitions like Hari Lamba who bring our communities ideas, good ideas that can be activated and can be transformed from just dreams to reality. I'm also endorsed by citizens impeachment. Impeaching Donald Trump is not the reason why I'm running. It is, however, a significant goal and a necessary goal. And very quickly, I do think that Rule 9 of the House should be invoked now. Any member of Congress can use it to force a vote of impeachment against Donald Trump. And I think that Democrats have a lot to gain by doing it. I think forcing Democrats to take a side and show that they're going to take a principled stance to fight Trump at a time like this, as well as forcing Republicans to defend him, is a way to ensure that accountability and the right side of history is marked in our elections, and it is a path to victory to win. However, the most important endorsement is always going to be you. I don't want an endorsement more important than you. I want to be voter approved and corporate PAC denied. Your vote matters. And I think that your interest should come first. I have more endorsements coming. I can't announce them yet, but as they come, we will announce them and talk about them more. I get this question a lot. What can we do besides voting? So I wanted to quickly share my thoughts on this. Besides just voting, there are ways for you to support and vote for new leadership. And my candidacy is one of these opportunities for meaningful reform at all levels of government. But we don't just stop at candidates, we also have to protest. We need to resist, and you need to use your dollars. The way that you spend your money makes a difference. Why? Largely because our government is corrupt. Largely because our politicians do respond to money. When you spend your money accordingly, businesses notice, and then politicians notice. So we can reverse this flow of corruption by using our money differently. I want you to activate people around you. The largest voting bloc in this country is independent, not Republican, not Democrat. They're not necessarily middle ground, though. They just don't necessarily feel connected to one party or another. So you have a chance to reach to other people and let them understand you're also going to listen to them and help them consider the difficulty of politics. Help people in your own lives find their way in our difficult and complicated political system. And lastly, you need to put more pressure on your representatives. Write more letters. Refuse to give donations. Comment publicly on them and their positions. Please stay connected with me. You can reach me at all of these areas on my website, on Substack, where I do long form writing, on Instagram and Facebook, where I'm on social media and very active. And lastly, I just want to say that it's time to pass the torch, and let's please move on to having a good Q&A. Thank you so much.
All right, wonderful. Thank you for that, Nico. Nicola, Nick, all the monikers. So at this point, we will open it up for questions. I don't see anything written in Q&A, which means we might have some folks who want to ask you questions directly, which is awesome. If you do want to ask a question, there's a react button down on the bottom toolbar. I believe the heart is the icon. And if you left click on that, there's a raise hand option. And if I see that, I will unmute you and you can ask Nicola your question. All right, we have John. Let me get over to you, John. All right, John.
Okay, unmuted, unleashed,
Yes.
untethered. Hi, everybody, and yeah, Nicola, I just wanted to ask you again. This is a very big and important issue for me. But given Israel's atrocities in Gaza and the West Bank, would you be in favor of ending funding, all U.S. government funding for Israel?
Yeah, actually, I am. And allow me to explain why, because it's a difficult problem. We're learning a lot about our relationship with Israel these days. And we're learning a lot about what they do with our weapons when we send them to them. There is a historical precedent for aiding and taking care of Israel, protecting Jewish populations around the world, and making sure that the atrocities of the Second World War never happen again. But the meaning of never again applies to all people around the world. And what we've seen from Israel is a singular focus on the well-being of Israelis, not necessarily of Jewish people around the world. And that's why most Jewish people in the diaspora see the problem and feel conflicted with the state of Israel. So I would understand why everyone here also could feel conflicted with our support for Israel. I believe that the state of Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. I believe that the state of Israel is working to capture members of our own government through campaign finance. And I believe that Israel is using the American power in the region to attack Iran right now. And so I think that we need to reconsider the terms of our relationship with Israel. We don't need to abandon the principles of our country or the principles of the free world and to abandon Israel completely. But I do think that we need to use the leverage that we have to rein Israel's excesses in, to course correct, to make sure that Israel respects the dignity and human rights of their neighbors, of their own community members, to end an apartheid situation, to stop the ethnic cleansing of the West Bank, and to stop committing genocide in the Middle East, and to end the program of Greater Israel across the Middle East. If we can do that, I think that we can have better relations with Israel again. But I think right now it's going to be a tough friendship. So I support ending aid to Israel as a way of leveraging our power over the country to make sure that never again means never again.
All right. Thank you.
All right, we appreciate your question, John. And then we'll go to Doug next, and then we'll follow up with John H. after that.
Hey, Nicola. Thank you so much for speaking today. This question actually relates to what you brought up earlier about withholding donations. I'm personally of the stance that I will not be donating to any candidates who openly support Chuck Schumer or Hakeem Jeffries for congressional Dem leadership. I think Schumer in particular has been a large part of the massive Democratic underperformance throughout the Trump era. So, what are your stances on our leadership? Would you be willing to openly campaign on replacing those two due to being ineffective Dem leaders?
Doug, thank you for asking. Interestingly enough, when I was living in Brooklyn, Hakeem Jeffries was my congressman, and Chuck Schumer was my senator. And I will say I've met them both. I would not support either of them for leadership, not in the House, not in the Senate. And allow me just to quickly explain why. Chuck Schumer, I think, represents, unfortunately, the complacency and the weakness in the Democratic Party today. I think that his strategy to win elections across the country have made us lose elections across the country and nationally. I think that his stance on Israel isn't correct. It's biased. And I can forgive him for feeling complicated. I do not forgive him for the way that he's led the Democratic Party over many, many years. Hakeem Jeffries, I understand he's trying to learn in the role, but I think that he was the wrong pick. I think that his instincts are wrong. I think that these are Democratic leaders more focused on raising money than raising voters and doing community action work. And I think we need more activists and community organizers in Congress. They just aren't them. And so Chuck Schumer, I sent him a card. I told him to retire. Hakeem Jeffries, I would not support in the House either. I just think we can do a lot better. They're just not the best we can do.
All right. And then we'll round out with John H.
Great presentation. And as you know, Nicola, I'm a big supporter of Medicare for All. And I've been recently asked by another constituent of our district, who's a Kaiser doc, to help prepare some type of memorandum explaining how Kaiser would go forward in an age of Medicare for All. And I think that's just sort of a microcosm of a number of details that need to be worked out to ensure a smooth transition between the two. And I think we need to have a responsibility to explain to people how that would work and make sure that the expectations are realistic. And I was wondering, since Kaiser is such a big component of our district, if you have any advice for me as far as how to frame the future of Kaiser should we develop a Medicare for All system.
Yeah, I think jobs will probably transfer, but there'll be more government jobs because it's a single payer system. But I think the best way to talk about it is appealing to people, not just economically and financially, but also to their values. People who are in that industry care about people and outcomes. And so I think what we do is we help them understand that this is a better way to deliver those outcomes and to reach a mission. And it's a massive problem. I think it's underestimated. For example, it's also a financial problem because people's retirement accounts are largely based in the private sector for these. So, for example, UHC is one of the largest companies in the world. It's a lot of capital investment, and people's retirement accounts are also included in that. And so the transition we're talking about isn't just jobs, it's also people and consumers and people's retirement accounts that are going to be affected by whether we move to a single payer healthcare system or not. So we're going to need more than what's in my head to solve this problem. And John, you're one of the people who work on it daily. And I think the best way to do it is to make sure people understand that care workers are going to keep their jobs. Administrators are going to be transitioned to public sector jobs. And there are benefits in that, right? Public sector jobs have job security, better benefits. And so there are ways to make people feel security in the transition as well and to look forward to new opportunities. It's just that it's going to be massively complicated. It's a heavy lift, but I think it's the right move. And so I think it's the hard work we need to just dig in and start getting onto. So I'm looking forward to working with you on it, John, actually. So thank you so much.
Very wonderful. And then we did have another question pop up.
Again, also much of the room's time, so if there's anybody else that has questions, I'm happy to wait. But if not, with Congress being the way it is these days, especially when the Republicans are in charge, I feel like one of the biggest things that members of Congress can do to make an impact is communications and kind of, in a sense, marketing. And so I'm kind of wondering in that regard what your plans are as far as rehabilitating the party image nationally. I was definitely attracted by the direct-to-camera videos that I saw you doing, and obviously it's been a major success for Mayor Mamdani's campaign. What do you see that as part of your goal or something that you can bring to the table?
So I think in general, and it's not an ageist thing, but I think in general, younger people spend more time on social media and they're more tuned into how these technologies are useful for communicating that way in a more personable, authentic way. And it goes really far with a lot of voters. That is why Mamdani is successful. He is a brilliant communicator. It's not just his policies, it's not just his ideas. He's already shown himself to be an amazing administrator, mayor of New York City with some pretty incredible first few days accomplishments. But we need to take a page from him and understand, and James Tallarico, that social media is a new way to communicate to people, but it's also how we communicate it, what we say, the words that we choose. Unfortunately, I do think the only way to get there is to elect new politicians. I think that the Democratic Party needs an overhaul, a massive overhaul. And I think we're getting there. I think a lot of voters are very displeased with the Democratic Party overall. The difficulty, though, with overcoming that is that people tend to like the representatives. In this district, I've met a lot of people who are very fond of John Garamendi. So when we compete with each other, we don't tear each other down either as part of the communication piece. I don't go around bashing John Garamendi to pull him down. I try to build something new. The Democratic Party, though, has the worst approval rating among its own voters in its history. The only way out of that is to change the people in the party and the people who are in power. And so that is one reason why I decided to get in the race, to make change a reality. But our brand is suffering, so we need to communicate differently, and we need new politicians to do it too.
All right, excellent. And then we have a question from Jenny.
Hi, thank you so much for the presentation. I was also at the town hall for all the different candidates, and I appreciate your ideas and still have some questions about how we implement the good ideas that we have. But I'm also French American, so I love that connection. I was born and raised in France. But my question is what you're doing to appeal to people of color and minorities and women voters, since I see some male white representation, which is kind of some of the same old. So yeah, I'm curious what you've been doing for that to appeal, because we need a whole change in the Democratic Party. And I think part of that is also like more racially diverse, gender, etc.?
Jenny, it's a really great question because this is one of the most diverse districts in the country. Um, to reach people that way, I think I acknowledge first that I am a white male, and that is how people see me first. But when I talk about ideas, when I talk about what we need in our communities, it starts with listening, and it starts with going to the communities that need it the most. If you're going into public service and you're not focused on the people with the most needs, I just don't think you're meant for public service. So what I do is I spend a lot of time in our communities. I spend a lot of time in Richmond. I spend a lot of time in Vallejo, which are some of the most diverse cities within the district. And uh, I went to the Black History Celebration event in Richmond just last week. I noticed I was one of the few white people there. I just know that people don't want to vote for people based on how they look. They want to vote for people because those people reach out and try to create trust with them. And so when I talk about my ideas, when I talk about who I have in mind, people who need it the most, it's because I think our district has had a history of disinvestment in our diverse communities, our most diverse communities. And so there needs to be justice. There needs to be economic and social justice in mind with the policies that we put in place. And for too long, our government has made sure that the people who get the benefits of our government and the market structures we have are people who don't need the help the most. You bear in mind that our public schools don't have the funding they need to raise and elevate the schooling that children need across every community. Schools are not based on enrollment numbers. Their funding is based on attendance. Those types of issues disproportionately affect people of color and communities that would do the best with the education that we can provide. So I think when we talk about what our communities need, we just can't forget the history of how we got here, and we can't not look forward to helping people who need it the most, regardless of where they're at. I just think we need to prioritize the places that need it the most, and so that is my approach.
Thank you for the great question, Jenny. And then Hari, it looks like you have your hand up as well.
Yeah, I just would like to react to the question regarding Democratic Party image and messaging. Um, I think at this point of time, the with the things which where in almost every aspect of national life things have deteriorated so hard and fast. I think the Democratic Party needs to step up with some bold visions. And the bold visions, Mamdani won on affordability. I think that was his strong message. He did connect also, that I agree, Nick. But his strong message was affordability, which is generally what progressives focus on. But Democrats generally work on, have talked about Social Security, Medicare, and so forth, social safety net issues. But I think in order to counteract Trump's message on the economic front and promote better income and jobs, and of course lower prices, we need to have a bold and courageous vision on the economic front, and also maybe add to it some of FDR's thing, which means every human being, as they turn around, they should have a way of, if they're willing to work hard, they should have an avenue for doing well, getting better, getting better educated, and so forth. So all of these, I think, need to be part of Democratic Party's vision. And the other aspect, which is diversity, I think diversity for any nation, diversity is its strength. Because I'm actually was born a Sikh. I came to this country as a young Sikh boy, and um, I think I have a tremendous sensitivity to multicultural issues, whether it be Hispanic. I know a, a decent amount of Spanish. I'm learning more and more. I think we need to communicate to the different communities that are, whether they are Black or Asian or Filipino or whatever, and Hispanic, and we need to convince them that, look, this is not just an America for white Americans, but it is for all Americans, and we will help you and you help America, being a two-way process. So anyway, those two issues, a bold vision and an influence on diversity. Thank you
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, thank you. We're not going to win by talking about Trump, for example. Like, we need to focus on issues that matter to people, and that's how Mamdani won.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you for the additional comments, Hari. And then Steve, I see you have your hand up.
Am I unmuted now?
You are, sir.
Okay. Sorry, I kept clapping thinking I was raising my hand, so that's what it kept going up and down. But I was clapping actually. So just wanted to let you know I really enjoyed your presentation. I've known Hari a long time, and I supported his campaign. And I've written a number of books. If you want to Google me, you can, and about democracy. But anyway, I live in Oakland, and I have quite a good sized list of people who I would recommend to connect with you. But is there a larger net? I guess I'm asking, is there a larger network you're working with? Because I wouldn't be able to vote for you, even though I may be able to support you in some ways. And most people on my list don't live in your area. So what do you recommend for me to do at this point?
I think there's still a lot of opportunity to have those conversations, whether you're in the district or not. I think that our communities are closely knit, and uh, districts change all the time. But I think that the best way to get connected, Steve, would be to do something in person. Maybe we should have a dinner and talk about supporting and fundraising and what activism could look like. There's ways for you to help from outside the district that don't involve, you can drive in, you can knock on doors, you can canvass. I don't know if you're available for that, but I do think we should just have more conversations. John Hirschleifer has had a lot of friends that are also outside the district, who have been interested or, talked about the politics in this particular district as well. I think that conversations have a tendency to go much further than the borders we draw. So I think that there's lots of ways for us to be involved and to talk more, and we should set up a time to communicate more. And if anybody here similarly wants to have a chance or an opportunity to speak or to organize, to host a dinner, or with their friends and families or people within their own network, I'm looking for those opportunities too. So we'll connect after this if you would like.
Great.
Okay, wonderful. I'm looking to see if there are any other folks. Oh, yes, Ben, you have a question.
Hi, Nicola. Thanks for answering all these questions. And one of the things that draws me to your campaign in this moment is something about your background as a financial risk analyst, if I have that right, and a
Risks are
financial
factored in.
regulator.
Yes. Not necessarily
Right.
just risk, but yeah.
So, and I know that, I like your stance that we're not going to win just by talking about Trump all the time. But I feel like this background prepares you to go into the fray at a moment where corruption in our political system has never been more visible. And I was just wondering if you could say a little bit more about what you could contribute to that fight.
Battling corruption, I think, starts with every candidate. So what do I do to battle corruption? By starting with myself. And if I understand the system is corrupt, and I know that everyone wants to know, how is money going to find its way to me? How is somebody going to corrupt me? And I think about that all the time. So why I'm campaigning this way and doing grassroots and not taking corporate PAC money is to help immunize my response. I have seen how politicians, including John Garamendi, will condition their response based on what industry he's talking about. When he talks about industry, he is like insurance, like housing. He has a less strong answer, less assertive answer than he does, for example, on Israel. And I think Israel, even then, he's taken APAC money. And so I think that what I'm doing to combat corruption is to understand it first in the way that it looks and the way that it is. When the public good comes secondary to any particular policy that benefits one particular sector or one particular actor, that is corruption, period. The public good has to be first and foremost in every policy we envision and align ourselves with. That's why I'm a progressive. I talk to MAGA people all the time, and I agree with them on so many things because they're not being put first in this country. What I disagree with them on is that Trump is helping them. And that's how I communicate. So when we address corruption in our system, we have to look at, does the policy prioritize the public good and the most people? Does it prioritize people who need help the most? Does it ensure rights for people? Because any attack on one vulnerable person in our society is an attack on all. Do we truly believe that? Do the policies we fight for and we spend our time and our bodies on the line for, do they enable and empower people everyday lives? Or are we talking about trickle down theories of promoting a business or a job or a special interest or a wealthy donor who's promising jobs if I let them get what they want? And that's not good enough. So I'm going to be a particularly tough customer when it comes to people approaching me for ideas of investing in our community, looking for federal dollars to do it.
Great. And then we have another question from M.
Hi. So Nicola knows me. We used to work together. So following up on Ben's question about financial regulation, first off, I just want to say I'm unfortunately not in the 8th district. I don't get to vote for Nicola, but I have met him. He's incredibly intelligent, analytic. I'm usually the smartest person in the room. This guy's smarter than me. So huge endorsement for him.
Come on, Melanie.
But a lot of, yeah, no worries. A lot of what we are seeing in the financial fraud realm is where we have bad actors doing pump and dump schemes where they're taking businesses onto our public stock exchanges and then just dumping them on the public. Retail investors is what we call them in the industry. And a lot of it is a lot of foreign actors are coming in and having bad companies come out. They put out a ton of press releases. They get basically corrupt people in the industry to help them. So what would you be able to do to kind of address that sort of fraud that's going on and does impact things like our 401ks?
It's such a big problem. And the reason that it can't be solved by FINRA, right, is because FINRA doesn't write the rules necessarily. They write some rules, but the rules come down from Congress. The rules come down to the SEC. And so one of the frustrations that Melanie and I have felt at FINRA is being helpless, just like consumers, because we sit there and study every single day the trends and the harm being done to retail investors around the world, and especially in the United States, and we can't do anything about it because the rules belong to Congress. The laws and the initiatives and the focus belong to Congress. And so what we need to do is focus on the over-financialization of all these key industries in the country, because that's also room for contagion. So when one sector of the financial world fails and crumbles, if it is too large, it affects every other thing. And that means that's why our housing market collapsed. That's why banks collapse. So when we talk about our healthcare systems, when we talk about housing, when we talk about education, I want everyone to walk away from this knowing that private investors are propping up all of these public goods programs. Your education, your healthcare, your housing are propped up by a financial system that rewards investors, not consumers. That's why your healthcare is not affordable. That's why your education isn't affordable. There are people taking your debt and making money with it. There are people who are providing you the least services possible in order to make the most money. And that's important to know because in America, government is also a business. That's how we've built our system. So we see it at FINRA. And I think everyone needs to understand that the market manipulation, the over securitization of our public industries or public goods are causing you your cost of living. And so as a congressman, I'm not going to forget this. And it's going to be one of my key areas of focus. It's not just campaign finance reform. It's a financial system overhaul that's also needed.
Thank you. And just as a quick time check, I wanted to do some closing remarks. We do have two questions in the Q&A, one from Martha, one from Doug, one about affordable housing, the other one about open borders. And so I wanted to do just a quick checkout. And then Nico, I don't know if we have additional time for you to stick around and answer those questions. For the broader group, I just wanted to say again, thank you so much for joining today. This has been a wonderful first virtual town hall event. We do plan on having more. So if you haven't already signed up to receive emails from us, you can go to the website, which I posted a link in the chat that you can find. And then also tell your friends to come to more in the future, bring somebody, recommend word of mouth is the best endorsement, like Nico said. And yeah, if you think in the coming days of any way that you want to help participate in the campaign at all, this is grassroots, challenging an incumbent. It's not easy. And so we're here for any assistance you can provide us. Like Nico said, it's a very diverse and talented district. So let's draw on that diversity and that talent to help put someone in office that's going to represent all of our best futures. And then Nico, I don't know if you had anything else in closing that you wanted to say.
Yeah, I want to thank everybody again for being here. You guys are already the backbone of this campaign. Your grassroots support is already noticed. We've gotten this far. And I want to just say that it's not easy for me either. That when I wake up, there are ups and downs in every campaign. And the downs are never really that down because there's people like you who have responded to me so effectively and so well. And I have ongoing conversations with you. And it's opportunities like this where I just get to hear your concerns and interests, where I can sharpen myself, think about things differently. I cannot do this alone. I cannot think of every idea alone. And every person here has contributed to making the country a better place. When we go out and we campaign and we beat Rudy Racile for second place in the primary, that is our goal. We are going to win in November. We'll have a new congressman, and we will actually make change possible in this country, and it's coming. It's not just me. There are hundreds of candidates across this country shaking up the incumbent landscape. We've just watched it happen in the election cycles that are already starting across the country, in Texas, in New Jersey, in North Carolina, in Virginia. The country is changing. It's not just because of me, it's because of you. It's because people are like you across this country, frustrated, too frustrated to let the same stuff pass over and over again. I think we're going to win. I think there's a chance to have this snowball effect overtake people in ways they never thought possible. I'll be at some protests on the 28th. That will all be in the headlines on my website. Please stay in touch. Continue to email me. Continue to reach out. If you can contribute financially, continue to do so. Those contribute to ads. It contributes to how we reach more people digitally. It contributes to yard signs. I'm doing this grassroots. I'm doing this with local support. And so that is how we're going to win. So I want to thank everyone for being here, for participating in the conversation. This is a meaningful way to change the country. I really mean it. And thank you. We will get back to everybody if you have a question. There are 2 questions in the chat right now we'll get back to. And again, I'm open ears. Anybody who reaches out to me will hear from me. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. So yeah, Martha will follow up with you via email. And Doug, I saw your addendum in the chat, so thank you for that. Yeah, and thank you all for your participation. Have a great day. Enjoy your Saturdays.